You know Rob Reiner, right? The guy who directed some of the biggest movies of the 80s and 90s, from When Harry Met Sally to The Princess Bride. Well, a few years back, the internet was absolutely convinced he had died, except there was one small problem. He was very much alive. So, how did thousands of people end up mourning a man who was still walking around Hollywood? Let's get into it. Visual note: recent photos of Rob Reiner looking healthy. So this whole thing kicked off around 2016 and 2017 when death hoaxes were having a real moment online. You'd see them pop up for everyone from celebrities to politicians. But Rob Reiner's was particularly weird because it kept coming back like some kind of zombie rumor that wouldn't die, which, considering we're talking about a death hoax, is pretty ironic. The first wave started on social media, as these things usually do. Someone would post something like, "R.I.P. Rob Reiner," and then a few people would share it without checking. Then a few more. And before you know it, you've got thousands of people convinced that the director of A Few Good Men has passed away. The thing is, Reiner wasn't even in the news at that time. There was no accident, no health scare, nothing. It was completely fabricated. Visual note: screenshots of fake RIP posts. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Unlike some celebrity death hoaxes that fizzle out in a few hours, this one had staying power. Part of the reason was that Reiner at the time wasn't super active on social media himself. He had Twitter, sure, but he was mostly using it to talk about politics and social issues. So when people started posting tributes, there wasn't an immediate, "Hey, I'm not dead" response from him. What really made this spread was the way people shared it. You'd see posts that said things like, "Can't believe we lost Rob Reiner today," or "Just heard about Rob Reiner, what a legend." No details, no sources, just vague enough to sound credible if you didn't look too closely, and let's be honest, most people don't look too closely when they're scrolling through their feeds at midnight. According to fact-checking websites like Snopes, they started getting hundreds of queries about whether Reiner had actually died. They had to put out multiple articles confirming that no, he was alive and well. Hoax Slayer, another fact-checking site, traced some of the rumors back to satirical websites that had posted fake obituaries. The problem was, people were sharing these articles without reading the fine print that said they were satire. Visual note: Hoax Slayer or Snopes article screenshots. Reiner himself eventually addressed it, though not directly at first. In a 2017 interview, he mentioned how bizarre it was to see people online talking about his death. He said something along the lines of, "I wake up, check Twitter, and apparently I'm dead. It's a strange way to start your morning." He laughed it off, but you could tell it bothered him a little. I mean, how could it not? The really frustrating part for Reiner was that these hoaxes would pop up again and again. It wasn't just one incident. In 2018, it happened again. Then in 2019, each time, it would spread just enough to cause confusion before someone would debunk it. And each time, Reiner would have to deal with concerned friends and family members reaching out to make sure he was okay. There's actually a psychological explanation for why these hoaxes spread so easily. Researchers who study misinformation have found that people are more likely to share negative news without verifying it, especially if it's about someone they care about or admire. It's called emotional contagion. When you see something shocking or sad, your first instinct is to share it, not to fact-check it. And social media platforms are designed to reward that kind of instant engagement. Visual note: Rob Reiner, at public events during the hoax years. Now, Reiner isn't the only one this has happened to. You've probably heard about similar hoaxes involving people like Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, and even Jeff Goldblum. But what made Reiner's case particularly interesting was how it intersected with his political activism. Around the same time these death hoaxes were circulating, Reiner was being very vocal about his opposition to the Trump administration. He was tweeting constantly, appearing on news shows, and generally making himself a target for people who disagreed with him. Some media analysts have suggested that the death hoaxes weren't entirely random. There's a theory that at least some of them were started by people who wanted to discredit him or his political views. The idea being, if you can't silence someone's voice through debate, you create chaos around their name. It's a dark thought, but not entirely implausible given what we know about online misinformation campaigns. In 2020, Reiner actually tweeted directly about the hoaxes. He wrote something like, "For those wondering, I'm still here, still fighting, not going anywhere." It was a pretty defiant statement, and his followers appreciated it. But even that tweet got twisted by some people who claimed it was proof of something sinister, like he was in poor health and trying to cover it up. You really can't win with these things. Visual note: Rob Reiner's actual tweets from this period. The truth is, as of right now, Rob Reiner is alive and still very active. He's in his mid-70s, still directing, still producing, and still very much involved in political and social causes. In fact, he recently wrapped production on a new documentary and has been making the rounds, doing interviews. So if you see any posts claiming otherwise, maybe take a second to check before you share. What's the lesson here? I think it's pretty simple. In an age where anyone can post anything and make it look legit, we all need to be a little more skeptical. Check the source. Look for credible news outlets. And if something seems off, it probably is. Rob Reiner's death hoax is just one example of how quickly misinformation can spread and how hard it can be to stop once it gets going. So here's my question for you. Have you ever fallen for a celebrity death hoax? And what do you think social media platforms should be doing to stop these things from spreading? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. And if you want more stories about the weird side of celebrity news, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, there's plenty more where this came from.